The sheer brutality and sadistic nature of what went on that morning in that house. It's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life.
A brutal killing.
She had 80-something stab wounds on her. That amount of rage is usually going to be somebody very close to the victim.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
They're telling me about how their mother has 2 boyfriends.
It's kind of a sugar daddy relationship.
She kept yelling, "No, don't come to my house."
The truth will be revealed.
Everything told me that something wasn't right here and that it wasn't over.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. "20 miles east of Atlanta lies the sleepy town of Conyers, Georgia.
It's just a short distance from the heart of the city, basically. But it still, in a lot of aspects, still has kind of a small town community feel.
We're a very safe community, very little violence. We probably have maybe 1 or 2 homicides a year. It wouldn't be unusual to go a year without a homicide.
But on a calm January afternoon, a piercing noise cuts through the neighborhood.
I got a phone call to report to the chief's office. It was around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Chief let me know that there had been a homicide and that currently the Rockdale County Sheriff's Department was on scene.
Twins, Jasmia and Tasmia Whitehead, have made a horrific discovery.
There happened to be a deputy just driving by who they flagged down.
The twins ran up to the side of the car and literally beat on the side of the car, screaming that they had found their mother dead.
For Commanding Officer Jackie Dunn and Lead Detective Ken Swift, it's their first murder of the year.
When we first arrived, there was already a number of officers cordoning off the scene, and there were 2 young girls in the back of the van crying hysterically.
But you have these 2 very sweet-looking little girls traumatized.
One of the twins was biting the inside of her forearm. She said, "It's just a nervous habit. I do it when I'm nervous." It was heartbreaking to watch. You want to be sensitive to their emotional state. And so you treat them with kid gloves. You're very delicate in the way that you approach things.
The twins direct police to the location of their mother's body. 34-year-old Nikki Whitehead.
When you walked up to Nikki's home, you see chaos. Stuff had all been thrown about. You see overturned chairs, broken vases on the floor, and you see and smell lots of blood.
You could smell it like, you know, the rust off of a penny. It was really, really strong. Nikki was where the daughters said they discovered her, just off the master bedroom, in a jacuzzi-like garden tub with water in it.
And she's laying partially submerged with her head out of the water.
Finding her naked and deceased in the tub full of water. All of that immediately calls your attention to a violent struggle of some sort. The sheer brutality and sadistic nature of what went on in that house. It's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life. There's no way to really prepare for it, but at the same time, you do have a job to do that is important, and that ultimately comes first.
The sheer violence of the scene gives detectives an insight into her killer.
Nikki had 80-something stab wounds on her. That's a lot of rage. Statistically, that amount of stab wounds, that amount of rage, is usually going to be somebody very close to the victim.
They must now determine what took place during Nikki's final 24 hours.
Piecing or reconstructing the last hours of somebody's life prior to us discovering their body is vital. It allows us to basically construct a timeline of the last people who were to see her alive, and then go from there as far as eliminating individuals or focusing on individuals that may or may not have been involved. With the twins being the ones who discovered their mother, we wanted to interview them, find out what they saw, and begin that aspect of the investigation. We bring them into the room, and they're both, Jasmia and Tasmia, are extremely sorrowful. They are crying. They are inconsolable, as you would expect for young teenage girls to discover their mother deceased. I didn't want to leave them alone. Nobody would have wanted to leave them alone.
Police begin softly, aiming to discover more about their mother.
We learned that Nikki was a hairdresser, and that she was also attending Bowder College, which is a fashion college. So she had aspirations of doing more than just hair. She loved the twins, and Nikki had them involved in cheerleading and dance. Their grades were all A's, exceptional students.
The interview then shifts focus to the last time the twins saw her.
They told me that the night before the murder, Nikki had come in from, their words, partying.
And then when they woke up the next morning, they got ready for school. And when they knocked on their mother's bedroom door, she did not answer. And so they left for school as they normally did. They said that they had not seen their mother at all that morning.
We know she is dead at about 4 when the twins get home from school.
That leaves an 8 to 9 hour window for the attack. As the questioning continues, the crime scene is also being processed.
It was almost impossible to make your way through the living room without stepping on something. Everywhere you looked, everywhere you turned, there was evidence of a struggle. Everything has to be photographed. Everything has to be cataloged and accounted for, so you're very conscious about where you step and how you proceed through the crime scene.
It's incredibly important to collect as much evidence as possible. Even something that may seem inconsequential, you don't know what it means until the investigation is advanced and you have more information.
You could see she's got her back to the wall and goes from one end of the wall all the way down to the other, and you can tell it's a battle. You can see that she made it to the back door. You can see her blood grip on the door handle. She tried to get out. The door was locked. And then you can finally see at that frame to her bedroom door where she's holding on to the wall, and then you can see the blood streaks as she grips the wall and slides down. And that is the largest concentration of blood. And that's the fatal area, we think. Looking at the carpet, you can see where she was drugged, blood streak going into the bedroom.
As far as the house itself, there were not your normal indicators that you would find in instances of a forced entry, broken locks, or a kicked-in door, or broken windows.
So we knew that whoever had been in there had been allowed into the house.
The twins then say that when they arrived back at the house, it was locked.
Came through the door, I put my key in, I just turned it, and I opened the door.
When a woman is killed, oftentimes the first person police look at is her boyfriend or her partner or her husband. And the reason for that is because it's the person they're closest to, and that's the person with the most motive.
Well, we learned that the girl's biological father pretty much disappeared not long after their birth. They knew of him, but he had moved to Canada.
He was eliminated from any sort of person of interest, right away.
But the girls say there is a man in Nikki's life.
The two girls told us about Robert Head and the relationship that he had with their mom, and that he was a truck driver that was gone for long periods of time, but that he owned the house and that they were allowed to stay there. The age difference between them was significant. I believe it was around 20 years. It's kind of a sugar daddy relationship that the girls were aware of. A unique relationship, to say the least.
The twins then provide another key detail, which gives Robert a potential motive.
Does your mom have any other friends or anybody else that come over that you know of?
Talked to a lot of men. Talked to some men, but the only one I've been hearing her talk to lately is Joe.
When police are investigating a case of someone who was sexually involved with another individual, and they realize that there is some sort of love triangle going on, they will pursue that angle and they will investigate it, and they will see if possibly they'd rather have that person dead than have them with somebody else.
Robert Head was immediately a person of interest, obviously, because of his relationship with Nikki. Given the fact that there was another boyfriend in the picture, it became extremely important that we find him and speak to him.
The discovery of a possible affair between Nikki Whitehead and another man has made her boyfriend, Robert, the first suspect in her murder.
The twins said that Robert had overheard Nikki speaking to a man on the phone the night before the murder. We had to eliminate the jealousy angle.
To do so, they must first find him.
We were able to contact his employer.
He was driving his truck in another state.
They confront him with the twins' allegations.
Robert told us the night before the murder, they had argued because their agreement was she wasn't going to talk to other men in front of him. He told us that he loved her to no end, that she was his princess, but he understood the age difference and that he knew when he went out of town that if she had boyfriends, he just accepted that. But when he came home, it was him.
People have open relationships. But in every open relationship, there comes a breaking point where the person or one of the persons involved has definitely had enough.
Robert downplays the argument, but the truth lies with the timeline.
They have GPS on the truck that he drives, and so we were able to see when he left town. He was out west, and would not have been possible for him to commit the crime.
Satisfied, police move on to the other man in the love triangle.
She's got a live-in boyfriend, and she's got a second boyfriend, and that's definitely a relationship we was going to investigate.
Once again, Nikki's daughters provide a critical clue.
They brought up that their mother had been arguing with her boyfriend, Joe, on the phone the night before the actual incident.
This was about 3 a.m. She kept yelling at Joe, "No, don't come to my house."
This is the second fight for Nikki in her last 24 hours.
Okay. What do you know about Joe?
Like, they argue a lot because
she was like, have a nice life, man.
yeah, because they were arguing last night.
Was it a argument that went bad? It is a viable motive for murder, and it has to be investigated.
Then, a witness from that day heightens suspicions even further.
Canvases of a neighborhood are always good in crime scenes like this and incidents like this. The neighbors revealed that there was a black car parked out front, either on the curb or in the driveway.
The car was spotted at 1:30 p.m.
We wanted to identify and find out who it belonged to.
Pretty quickly, we looked up Joe Carter, and he had a black vehicle registered to him.
Police tracked Joe down at his workplace.
Joe is a barber, and his barber shop happens to be right beside the salon that Nikki did hair at.
When we went in to speak to him, everybody inside the barbershop initially was very reluctant and dismissive of us. We said, this has to do with Nikki Whitehead. It's very important. And I guess by the tone of our voice, he understood that this wasn't just some idle questions that we had. When we told Joe what had happened, Joe's reaction was shock. And, you know, he was trying to light a cigarette and his hands were shaking. Seeing anybody's reaction to news like that is always important.
As an investigator, you're looking for the responses. Are they genuine? Are they fake? What we do is we look at it and say, that's interesting. What did they have to hide?
Joe Carter's admission to arguing with Nikki Whitehead the night before she is killed prompts police to bring him downtown.
We told him we're here to see if you're a suspect or to eliminate you as a suspect.
Joe described their relationship as somewhat rocky. It's investigation 101. You begin to probe about what the argument was, what the disagreement is, why, what was causing the tension. They had been arguing about her use of alcohol and the status of their relationship.
Joe also claims that on the day Nikki was killed, he spent the entire time working at the barbershop, over 16 miles away.
We asked him to go take a polygraph exam.
A polygraph examination in essence, is to provide you with information only and not necessarily evidence, to perhaps corroborate a feeling or information you have. If you believe the witness is not telling you the total truth, a polygraph may help you to prove they're being deceitful about something.
But he passed. He was not showing any deceit. We also interviewed his co-workers, who all confirmed his alibis.
His concern appeared to be genuine and for Nikki.
The one question left unanswered is the black car.
The post office had actually logged that car because if it sits in front of a mailbox too many days, then they'll write a little complaint note and put it on the car. And so we were able to determine that that car was actually visiting someone just slightly up the street a little bit and was there innocently. When you work criminal investigations, you're going to follow some leads that look hot and they're going to be dead ends.
But the neighborhood canvas turns up another lead.
Well, we were interviewing everybody that would come in, you know, what have you seen at this house? We learned that someone had seen a red car parked in Nikki's driveway during that day.
The red car is spotted at 3 p.m. Right within the time frame police believe Nikki's unknown attacker gained access to the house.
The red car was important. We wanted to identify and find out who it belonged to.
We found that Nikki had a friend that drove a red car, and so obviously we go in and talk to that friend and said, hey, you know, did you happen to go by Nikki's house today? And she was very forthcoming, yes, I did. I had an appointment for Nikki to fix my hair today.
Nikki did makeup and other cosmetic work for people. They would set up appointments and come to her house. The woman, she had gone to the house, she had knocked on the door. She knocked repeatedly, thinking that maybe she was napping or that there was some other reason why she was not home. After nobody coming to the door, nobody answering, she left.
They trace the woman's cell phone records, which confirm she was only at the house for a few short minutes.
We know from looking at our scene, this was probably a 20-minute battle that she fought for her life. So we were able to eliminate her being involved with the incident. She's probably grateful she didn't go in at that time.
It's their last solid lead in the hunt for Nikki's killer.
Nikki had a business card that had her actual picture of her eyes on the business card. I kept that card at my desk because I didn't want to forget that I needed to be Nikki's advocate. It was special. I saw a woman that grew up rough, but she saw a better life. And not only saw a better life and was doing better for herself, but she wanted better for her children. I'm like, man, I wonder what's going to happen to these girls. I hope some family member is able to take care of them.
Oh, my grandma.
The woman the twins call Grandma is actually their 75-year-old great-grandmother, Dela Fraser. Police learn that until very recently, Dela was the twins' legal guardian.
We learned that Nikki grew up on the streets, so to speak. She was raised by Dela, her grandmother. She was pregnant with the twins at age 17.
Nikki was still present in their lives, but the main role of raising the girls belonged to Dela.
When Nikki met Robert, she became somewhat stable. Nikki wanted to provide a stable environment for them and thought she could with Robert's help.
and Nikki felt because of Dela's age, she wasn't able to provide the sort of stern rules and guidance that the girls needed at the time. The Rockdale County Juvenile Court had decided that it was important for the girls to establish a relationship with their mother. And in order to do so, they needed to move in with their mom. The two girls had just been brought back into their mom's life just a couple weeks prior to the murder.
The records indicate a fractured family history.
The relationship with Dela Frazier, being the twins' great-grandmother, was very much at odds with Nikki.
She loved the twins, and she thought it best that she raise them. The relationship had become strained.
This elevates Dela from doting grandmother to person of interest.
Family murders are more common than people think. Sometimes it's planned, sometimes it's done in a fit of rage. Despite how appalling it is to many of us, family murders tragically aren't all that rare.
When you are investigating something of this nature, you cannot eliminate anyone without having run them through, every possible scenario and vetted where they've been and what they've been doing and the nature of their relationship with the victim.
Police also learn there are other things at stake.
The situation with the two minors living with Dela, she was able to get some state assistance. So losing them back to Nikki when she lost them had been a little financial cost, and so might have been motivation.
A motive for family or domestic murder could be money, could be the loss of money. It's a very strong motivator.
A custody battle has made Dela Frazier the latest person of interest in the murder of her granddaughter, Nikki Whitehead.
One of the key traits of, I find, the more seasoned homicide detectives is separating emotion from fact. To do that, you have to look at the basics. You have to look at their motive, their means, their opportunity, and, in certain cases, it may not always be that apparent.
Dela is requested to come to the station for questioning, but shows up 6 hours later.
When we initially interviewed her, I would talk to her. I would say, what do you think? Do you think that Robert or Joe could have done this? Or do you think somebody else or somebody you can think of?
When questioning family members, it is very difficult. You have to protect your case, and you have to realize you're dealing with the victims, potentially. And your victims, being the survivors, one of them could be the killer.
Detectives need to determine not only where she was at the time of the murder, but whether Dela had the means to do it.
This is a rage killing, and that's shown in the viciousness of the attack and the number of times the mother was stabbed.
To look at Nikki's body and the amount of rage and sadistic premeditation to go through all of this.
This was a battle.
The physical limitations make it seem unlikely, so they turn to her alibi.
When we looked at Dela, we were able to put her somewhere else at the time we thought the incident happened.
We eliminated Dela as a potential suspect.
But the work involved in examining the family dynamic uncovers a new lead.
We found that there was previous incidents that had taken place at her house.
I got dispatched to a call at the house. As I pulled up in front of the house, I see Nikki running out of the garage screaming. Nikki had marks on her neck, scratches on her arms, indicative of someone that had been in some sort of a tussle.
Officer Myra Scruggs attempts to calm Nikki down.
Anytime you're involved in any kind of a domestic situation or disturbance or any kind of physical altercation, you're gonna have people that are at an elevated state of emotion. They're usually very upset, they're crying, they're yelling, they're trying to tell you what happened, which is what the case was with Nikki.
Through tears, she reveals her assailants.
She said the girls jumped on her. When I spoke to the girls, they showed zero emotion. Their faces were stoic. They were angry. The girls had no marks on them whatsoever. It was so alarming to see these stoic faces. And I've been doing this long enough to know that no one is going to have that much calm about them. Certainly not 14-year-old girls who have been in an altercation with their mother. After they went to court on the assault on their mother from my case, the girls were placed back in the care of their great-grandmother. Everything told me that something wasn't right here and that it wasn't over.
The attack on their mother, 2 years prior to her death, introduces a new pair of suspects.
In the very beginning, we had a very established timeline set by the twins themselves. They left the house at a normal time, they got to school, and then they came home. And they discovered their mom's body.
The twins' hidden history of violence drives investigators to scrutinize their account of that day in greater detail.
You look for irregularities. What's different today than happens every day? Initially, the twins told us they missed the bus, but they tell us they were able to walk to school and only missed 15 minutes of class. So I put my special operations team on foot. It's about 2.5 miles from their house to the high school. And I had them walk the route, looking for any surveillance cameras between the house and the high school. I have our school resource officer pull the video at the high school.
The school surveillance camera shows they arrived at 10:15 a.m.
It's 2.5 hours later than what they're telling us. So that's our first irregularity.
That's a lie. How many times have you lied to me?
0.
The only individuals who we kept finding holes in stories and lies were the twins.
With their story now in question, police revisit the twins' original account of their mother's final 24 hours.
And the first suspicion at Joe was planted by the twins. They had alleged that Nikki had been in an argument with Joe the night before the murder. We were able to send subpoenas to the phone company and get phone records, and the phone call that she had been on was not to Joe. It was to a family friend that the family considers a relative. Once we interviewed this person, not only had he spoke to Nikki, but he spoke to both of the twins and thought all was well. Never would have guessed that a few hours later that Nikki would have been dead.
They now see, from the beginning of the investigation, the twins were in control.
They were so dedicated to getting out of that house and going back to their own lifestyle that they would have done anything. They would have told any lie to make themselves the victims.
But was this motive enough for murder?
They were given free rein to come and go as they pleased from Dela's house. With their mother, she had rules, she had curfews, she had limits as to what was allowed and what was not.
Nikki was strict on them.
Nikki could foresee that these are beautiful young girls. They were getting into boys. They were getting into a little too much partying. She saw the forest for the trees. She knew what was coming, as with any child that age. I think they're very manipulative, and they know exactly what they're doing. And it had worked for them as younger girls. You know, as you get older, you're playing adult games now. You know, everything changed.
With focus squarely on the twins, they then discover a key item hidden deep within the evidence collected from the scene.
We located a journal, and the journal had specific writings about how both Jasmia and Tasmia felt about their mom, how unhappy they were, how angry they were with her. I mean, it was a detailed plan about what was going to happen as far as a timeline for the future.
They wrote something to the effect of, if we're ever going to get back to Dela's, it's going to have to be soon. And the other one responds, yeah, she's got to go.
Police now have written evidence implicating Nikki Whitehead's twin daughters in her murder.
These girls realized that they weren't going back, that this was it. They were going to have to live with their mother. So they made their decision. And the decision was to kill their mother.
Right now, it's just a theory. They still have to prove it.
The autopsy was able to reveal that there was actually a hair lodged in between the teeth of Nikki. That hair was matched to one of her daughters as having come from her.
The interesting thing in this case was that hair was found in Nikki's teeth. That is not someplace where you would anticipate finding DNA of a relative, of somebody that you're cohabitating with. So that's the importance of not only finding DNA, but interpreting its significance.
This connects back to something police noticed when the twins were first questioned.
We see one of them biting herself. And of course we're like, hey, what are you doing? And she said, I bite myself when I'm stressed out like this. Matter of fact, we look at those bite marks and there's a little space in the two front teeth, and we know that Nikki's got a little gap in her two front teeth. So we have an odontologist make a mold of Nikki's teeth and compare it. And that odontologist said that to a probability, Nikki bit the twin defensively as the twin had her from behind trying to break the hold.
Ultimately, the bite mark is what sealed their fate. I do believe that she left that bite mark for us.
On May 21st, 2010, the twins are arrested just before their high school graduation. Confronted with the evidence, they eventually make a stunning on-tape confession, revealing the true series of events.
The day began as the girls waking up and getting ready for school, and then getting into an argument with their mom about something minor. Something related to boys or a curfew, something of that nature. Maybe it was the resentment of going from a house with their grandmother with no rules or restrictions to living with their mother, who suddenly was enforcing these rules. Regardless, it created a hostile sort of environment and relationship between the two of them. Ultimately, it erupted into a physical fight.
She just screamed out and stopped. I had her hands, she has her feet. Kind of like a joint effort.
These two girls are now at 16. They're about her same build and stature. Nikki's a small frame woman. She's fighting for her life. The girl's choking her from behind, and Nikki just using everything that she can because she's outnumbered and out-weaponed and everything. She's doing everything she can, and she bit the twin trying to escape.
They began repeatedly stabbing their mother.
I think I picked up a knife and I stabbed her. It was multiple times.
In the head, in the neck, in the breasts, in the back.
She's just bleeding, her head bleeding, I guess from the face. And she's just bleeding everywhere. Blood on the floor.
And then, like nothing happened, the twins go to school.
And as they walk down the hall, one of them veers off from the other one to a trash can. We don't know if that was a knife. By the time we saw that video, sanitation had already picked up the school's trash, so we'll never know.
At one point, they tried to claim self-defense, but it was so ridiculous. There was no way anybody was ever going to wrap their head around a story about self-defense, given what the inside of the house looked like.
And I think it was at that moment that I realized that these girls are sociopaths. You know, how do you kill your mother and then go to school and continue your day like it never happened, and then come in the door and act like you found her that way? It's hard to imagine that your own children could inflict that upon you. It's heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking.
In exchange for a guilty plea, the pair are offered a deal, 30 years each for voluntary manslaughter.
So those girls won't be out until they're in their late 40s, which I think that served justice. Because you had two young ladies that I think are, they're just evil.
I think most people are uncomfortable or unwilling to accept that as something that could exist in 16-year-old girls. But knowing that they did plead guilty and that they're behind bars and justice was found ultimately for Nikki, you're able to move past it.
They're ultimately where they need to be. It breaks our heart, having listened to Nikki talk about these girls and the potential for these girls, how intelligent they were, beautiful young girls. I hate it that their mother couldn't make it work, that Nikki tried her best. And I don't think she should have had to pay for that love with her life.
To shoot a man while he was sleeping, he didn't even have a chance to defend himself.
An execution-style slaying.
So if it's not a random act of violence, then you gotta find somebody who wants to do them in.
A real-life game of Clue.
They all knew that night in that garage, every single one of them, that he was already dead in the house.
The truth will be revealed.
It's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
I had to be the person to get some justice for him.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Newbury Township, Ohio. A small community with a big heart.
Newbury is close-knit. Everybody knows each other. People do things together. They have four-wheelers and dirt bikes in the summertime, and in the wintertime, everybody pulls out their ski-doos.
You've got neighbors that are spread out, you know? It's nice. It's safe. People leave their doors open. People know one another, and they trust one another.
What city?
Newbury, Ohio.
Okay, what is the problem, sir?
I think somebody's having a heart attack or something.
Is he breathing?
Help. He's unconscious. He's not responding.
We had a 911 call come into our sheriff's office placed by an individual by the name of Tig.
Tig has found his 53-year-old stepfather, Randy Sheffield, unconscious in his bed.
Do you want to try CPR?
He's really cold and he's really stiff.
Listen, sir, do you want to try? I'll walk you through it.
He's kind of got a firm grip on the edge of the bed. Okay, he's not with us.
Randy is the owner of a landscaping company in town. He's known as the Snowplow King among friends, and he's always enjoyed being a big fish in a small pond.
He had a lot of clients. He cared about his employees, he cared about his customers, and people respected him, and you know, he never really had any ill will towards anybody.
He just was a generous, kind, good guy. Everybody I spoke with just said, you ask him for it, he'll give you the shirt off of his back.
Minutes after the call comes in, first responders arrive at the Sheffield home.
We had the Deputy Heather Bilasek respond to the scene. And she had worked on an ambulance squad, so she had quite a bit of medical background in her history. And she looked at the scene with very different eyes than an average deputy. She noted that there was blood on the bed and was coming out of what she believed was the back of the head. And she immediately recognized this as something is wrong. Upon looking at the room to see what caused the injury, she noted a gun box. She picked it up to see if there was a gun in it, and the gun box was empty. Now her mind started racing. Could this have something to do with the wound in the back of the head?
Suspecting foul play, Deputy Bilasek calls in veteran homicide detectives, Juanita Vetter and Mitch Kelly.
Detective Vetter and I have worked quite a few death investigations. We've had some pretty gruesome ones, some worse than others. So in this particular case, would I call this one strange? I don't know what strange is anymore. People do weird things to each other. People are not nice to each other.
To find out who would want Randy dead, detectives must piece together the final 24 hours of his life, starting with the crime scene.
I felt that I was behind the 8 ball immediately when I walked into the room of the Sheffield residence. What was very bizarre about the scene is that the wallet was on the floor and the credit cards were spewed out. The drawers are pulled out, but nothing is missing. To me, it almost looks like somebody's trying to stage a burglary.
Things get even more unusual when they walk into the living room.
There's 6 people sitting in the living room at 1 o'clock in the morning, and there's a dead man not even 20 feet down the hall. So now I've got the task of who are all these people? I don't even have people's names.
When you have a pool of suspects this large, the process has to focus on what's called excluding suspects. So you don't just arbitrarily decide who's more likely to have done it than somebody else. You will actually systematically and categorically move through all of the people because everyone is a suspect.
As Vetter works her way around the room, she starts putting the puzzle together. Detta is Randy's second wife. They've been together for more than 20 years. She's also the company bookkeeper. Tig is Detta's son by a previous marriage, who Randy loved and raised as his own.
Tiggy was a self-taught mechanic. He was really good. He'd rip those machines apart and put them right back together.
Gina is Tig's girlfriend. They have a baby son together and live down the road from the Sheffields.
She's a hairdresser. She was definitely goth looking, you know, pitch black hair, tattoos covering her entire torso.
Lastly, there's Randy's snowplow drivers, Trevor, Kurt, and Jason. They were working in the garage when Randy's body was discovered.
I'm concerned that my evidence is being destroyed by all these people being in the house. So after we get everybody out of there, I wanted to do an interview with the wife.
Hey, Detta. I know that it's late. I'm just very thankful that you took the time to come to the sheriff's office and talk to me. Your husband is, you know, he's passed, and our job is to try to figure out what happened. But what do you think happened?
I didn't know. I don't know. He's diabetic. I thought he was sleeping. I just shook him and he wouldn't wake up. He just kept laying there like this, on his side, like he sleeps. I don't know what happened to him. I have no idea what happened.
As I'm interviewing Detta, we have not told her that we found a bullet in the back of her husband's head yet. I'm simply asking her about her husband's death and the relationship that she has with her husband. But then when I did finally tell her, Detta, I have something to tell you.
What is it? Your husband has a gunshot wound to the back.
No, no.
She became excessively, uncontrollably crying and hysterical.
I need you to be strong.
And I couldn't even ask another question. I got so frustrated that I physically left the room because there was no dealing with her.
Detta says that Randy was everything to her, having rescued her from a desperate situation 2 decades earlier.
Randy was in his 20s and he had gotten divorced. He would go to the Greenville Inn, and Detta was divorced as well. So that is where he met her.
She didn't have a lot of money prior to meeting Randy. She was raising 3 kids on her own. She was living in a bad part of the county, you know, kind of like Section 8 housing.
She was trying to keep a roof over their head, and Randy had an apartment. After they got married, Randy really did raise the kids. And Detta started working in the landscaping business.
He's a very basic guy. And Detta was like the mother hen. She would always make the sandwiches. She was always doing the cooking. Randy was the breadwinner, and she would cater to all of Randy's needs.
This is what I need you to really think about. This morning, okay?
And he said he was going to McDonald's. What did I want? And I said, what do I always get? Egg McMuffin.
Detta says that Randy woke up at 6:30 a.m., excited because the forecast was calling for snow.
That's the first time it snowed significantly at all that whole year. So Randy was going crazy because he's gonna be wanting to get his guys out.
Just after 7 a.m., Randy heads to McDonald's to fuel up for the big day ahead.
He's going through the drive-thru. Hash browns was one of the things he purchased. He also bought some sandwiches. He ate those on his way back to his house.
All right. Now, he comes home, he's got his Egg McMuffin.
And we went, he said, I'm boring. You want to go back to bed and fool around? And I said, all right. We got up, we went back in the bedroom, we made love.
Then Detta says he's not feeling well. So Randy lays down to take a nap.
Detta says the last time she spoke to Randy was just before she left the house at 9:30 a.m. That means Randy could have been killed any time between then and 9:30 that night.
Randy's death did not immediately happen prior to him being discovered. It had to have happened much, much earlier in the day.
Detta spent the whole day running errands around town, not arriving back home until later in the afternoon at 4:30.
She said that she went, put the groceries away, went to check on Randy, peeked in the bedroom, saw he was sleeping, decided to leave him sleep, and then went outside to see the boys in the garage.
By the time Jason arrives for work at 9 p.m., Detta, Tig, Gina, Trevor, and Kurt have gathered in the garage.
The roads were so horrendously snow-covered. If you own a snowplow business, you should be out snowplowing, if not anything else, getting your trucks ready to go snowplowing.
Jason was concerned because, hey, we're getting ready to go snowplowing, nobody's called. Where's Randy?
That's when Detta decides to check on Randy and discovers him lifeless in his bed.
So the biggest issue is, how does someone get shot in their home? People are in a garage, but no one heard anything and no one saw anything.
Since Detta was the person who found Randy, Detective Vedder is charged with asking her a tough question.
Did you have anything to do with what caused your husband's death?
No, God, no. No, I love my husband. No.
That's the question I have to ask.
To me, and everybody reacts differently, but to me it was just like she was playing to the camera. This, oh Randy, my Randy, oh Randy, just this sobbing and rocking back and forth.
No, Randy. Oh my God, Randy. No.
It definitely smells. It smells really bad.
After discovering the snowplow king, Randy Sheffield, shot dead in his bed 2 days after Christmas, the pressure is on detectives Vedder and Kelly to find his killer.
The hardest homicides are the whodunit homicides. It's like putting a puzzle together, and you have a limited amount of time to get as much as you can before people change their minds, start talking to each other, start getting their stories right.
Right now, everyone's a suspect, including Randy's wife Detta, his stepson Tig, and Tig's girlfriend Gina, all of whom were at the house when his body was found.
The one thing I always keep in the back of my head when I'm doing my investigation is I'm always trying to find who is it that has opportunity and the motive.
To find that out, detectives need to narrow down Randy's time of death.
Establishing time of death tells you exactly when the offender and the victim were in contact. That needs to be as precise as possible in order for it to be confirmed beyond a reasonable doubt in a court that a certain perpetrator and a certain victim were in the same place at the same time. If those don't line up, if the timeline is off, you have reasonable doubt, plain and simple.
Detectives are still waiting for the official autopsy report. So for now, they're basing Randy's time of death on the amount of rigor mortis, or stiffness, to his body when he was found.
Rigor mortis does not set in for, 5, 6, 7 hours. So I'm working on what Deputy Heather Bilsek has told me. She tried to roll him over and she said he had death grip on that post, which was really strong rigor mortis. So I'm thinking, shoot, if you're there at 9:30, I'm thinking noon to 3 is what I'm thinking for time of death.
Their first suspect is Randy's wife, Detta. Detectives need to know where she was when Randy was murdered. She claims she was running errands around town from 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Detective Kelly sets out to verify her alibi.
You can't go more than a quarter mile anywhere without being caught on video.
And what we ended up doing is we ended up making a timeline off of Dretta's initial statement. The timeline consisted of videos and the cell phones.
She said, I left the house at around 9:30 in the morning. We're able to verify that with video footage that we obtained from gas stations.
She said she went to the bank, she did a bid for the snowplow, she went to Walmart and did some grocery shopping.
We got video of her walking into the store. We got video of her in the store. And then we got video of her coming out. During that time, she also makes a phone call to Randy talking about what she's gonna buy, what she wants to make for dinner.
She went to Gina Battaglia's, stayed there, and then eventually made her way home. And that's exactly what she did.
Detectives believe that Randy died between 12 and 3 p.m. So with Detta out of the house for most of the day, they conclude that she couldn't have killed Randy. Detectives now turn their attention to Tig, Randy's stepson. He was the one who called 911, and there's something about that recording that doesn't sit well with Detective Vetter.
My dispatchers are trained in emergency response, so they were giving them step-by-step instructions on how to do CPR. Tig, for some reason, said that he couldn't do it because his hands were greasy, because he was working on motorcycles all day, which, when I listened to that phone call, was an immediate red flag.
Do you want to try CPR? I'm covered in grease. I was out working. Listen, someone needs to try. Who's free of grease and can do it?
Greasy hands is not a legitimate reason to not do CPR on a loved one, especially when it's your father, stepfather, someone so close in the family.
Police need to know more about Tig's relationship with his stepfather. They turn to Randy's sister, Melody.
Him and Tiggy were very close when Tiggy was little. Randy raised Tiggy as if he was his own son. He always rode motocross. He had a beautiful, beautiful BMW street bike. And they would go like up into upstate New York and go through the countryside. You know, so they did all that stuff together.
Randy also taught him how to fix the machines they raced on. By the time he grew up, Tig was a skilled mechanic, and it was only natural that he started working for his stepfather in the shop.
It was always believed that Tig was the next in line to take over Randy's company. And he told people that this business is gonna be mine, I'm gonna be in charge.
But as investigators dig deeper, they learn there was tension between stepfather and son.
Tig wanted to go in the direction of getting in the construction part of landscaping, you know, building patios and everything like that. Randy didn't want to do it because it would cost more money for insurance. He was making a good living off of how he started the company. There's a good possibility that Tig may now be on the outs, and that company that he thought was going to be his is not going to be his now.
Having found a possible motive, investigators questioned Tig about his whereabouts on the day Randy was murdered.
Tig leaves his house about 11:30 in the morning because he's going to go get breakfast with a friend of his. And so Trevor picks him up, and they go to breakfast. They then decide to go to the shop. But on the way to the shop, they have to get snacks and drinks, so they stop at the gas station. That was right at 1 o'clock, and Randy Sheffield's house is not even 30 seconds from the gas station. So it was like 5 after 1. He gets to the garage.
So they're hanging out in the garage for most of the day. Then throughout the day, different friends are popping in and popping out.
Tig claims he didn't enter the house until later that night, when Detta found Randy's body. Investigators turned to Tig's friend Trevor to confirm Tig's story.
We talked to Trevor, separate of Tig being there, and asked him, you know, did you go in the house? Did Tig go in the house? So he said yes. Tig Rouse had gone into the house around 3 o'clock in the afternoon to use the bathroom.
That means he clearly had the opportunity to kill Randy.
And this is where the rubber really hits the road. This is where the timeline is key, because you're talking about not hours, but minutes where a person's whereabouts may be unknown and where they may have cross-pollinated with the victim.
When investigators confront Tig, he vehemently denies having anything to do with the murder. Instead, he tells them he thinks he knows who may have done it.
The story is that there was 2 former employees. They're drug addicts, they're thieves, they're crooks. These 2 guys had it in for Randy.
Tig says right before Christmas, Randy fired 2 transient workers from Cleveland for using drugs, and they swore revenge on him before leaving town.
Randy ran a good, clean business. He really did, and so he kept people on the books, but there was no record of these people existing at all.
So we went back to other snowplow drivers and asked them, did Randy have anybody in the landscape snowplow business that were let go before Christmas? No. Across the board.
Police conclude that the ex-employees never existed.
Why is Tig misdirecting? Trying to redirect towards these nefarious people from Cleveland who were mad about being fired.
We realized that Tig was making this story up, and it makes Tig look very bad.
The investigation into snowplow king Randy Sheffield's murder is narrowing in on his stepson Tig after detectives discover he was alone in the house the afternoon Randy was killed.
We went to talk to Tig, and we got a call from Tig's attorney, and we're no longer allowed to talk to either of them. So any follow-up interviews and all questions involved, we weren't allowed to go there.
With Tig freezing them out, detectives turned to Randy's longtime friend Jason for insight into Tig's demeanor that night in the garage.
I've known Nikki my whole life. I know something was wrong the minute I got there that night. What are you saying? I don't know. I mean, honestly, I know in my heart to heart that Tig knows exactly what happened. I know that.
I know he knows that.
I know he does. Tig was very focused mechanic. When he was working on one engine, he didn't stop to mess with anything else. And that night, he was just disheveled. I've seen it in his eyes since that day. He's a changed person.
Really?
Yeah. And I truly believe that Tig isn't the one that killed him. But at the same time, I believe he knows the answer. But he can end this for everyone.
That's as far as Jason will go in pointing the finger at anyone. But he tells detectives to look at Gina, Tig's girlfriend and the mother of his child. He says Tig's life started going south the moment he hooked up with her.
Gina is insane. And she's just crazy. She was always in trouble. She was on drugs and she, just partying.
Investigators learn that Gina continued her wild lifestyle even after she moved in with Tig.
At one time, Tig and Gina lived in the basement of Randy's house. Randy is a quiet kind of guy. He's a little bit older. He said to Tig, I have raised you to be a good man, and it's time for you to live on your own, and you need a place of your own.
I guess Randy just said he could not stand the constant fighting and screaming that was going on in the basement between her and Tig.
The family says that while Tig accepted Randy's decision, Gina did not.
This is a very entitled, spoiled girl who just can't believe she's not getting her way. She's angry at Randy because she deserved to be there. Tig deserved to be there.
But what detectives find out next takes their suspicions of Gina to the next level.
During the course of the investigation, talking to people, we ran into an individual who was best friends with Gina. She had told us about a time that her and Gina were walking with the kids. Gina said, Randy just sits in the truck all day, and Tig is the one who makes all the money. He's the one who works. He's the backbone, and all Randy does is sit there and put his hand out. And then she continued on by saying that we've got to figure out a way to off Randy. We would be so much better without him.
With Gina now in the investigators' crosshairs, she's brought into the station for questioning about her whereabouts the day Randy was murdered.
Gina said she never left the house. She said she got up, she took care of her son, and then when Kurt came over, they got in the car, they went to a friend of theirs, and then made their way with pizza up to the garage.
But when detectives pull her cell phone records, they reveal a different story.
Some of the calls that she received that morning were bouncing off of a tower near the Sheffield residence. And the only way that that would happen is if she left her home and she went to the residence.
That puts Gina near Randy's house in the time frame they believed he was killed.
We sat down to talk to Gina for a little bit, and it just exploded. We kept asking her about her cell phone moving.
She got very nervous. She got very antsy in her seat. I think if it wasn't cool in there, she would have started sweating.
And every time I would ask her, she came up with, oh, I must have been at so-and-so's house. I forgot, I checked that with the, no, that would be a totally different cell phone tower. I'd hit her back with that. Gina, that doesn't make sense. Just tell me, where did you go? She gave me 5 different answers about where she went during that day. Now there's nothing she can say to make it right.
In an effort to clear her name, Gina agrees to take a new form of lie detector test called a computerized voice stress analysis.
CVSA is a new technique that looks at patterns in your voice and stress of the voice to determine whether or not you're telling the truth about a crime. Oftentimes, some of these techniques are not used in court, but they're still an investigative tool to determine if somebody's telling the truth or possibly engaging in deception.
It's done with a computer, you can't fake it. She failed it miserably. I informed her, hey, listen, this is gonna go south. This is not looking good for you.
We had put a lot of pressure on Gina, and we honestly felt that she was gonna crack.
But surprisingly, Gina holds firm to her story, and with nothing but circumstantial evidence against her, detectives are forced to release her. After weeks of sleepless nights, investigators are no closer to finding Randy's killer than they were on day 1.
I'm very good at compartmentalizing things. I keep work, home, home. You know, in this case, I couldn't compartmentalize it. I thought about it 24/7. And to shoot a man while he was sleeping is, I'm disgusted by it. He didn't even have a chance to defend himself. And I did feel that I had to be his voice. I had to be the person to get some justice for him.
Unwilling to accept defeat, detectives start canvassing the neighborhood, looking for any new leads.
So we gotta hit the ground, and you gotta start knocking on doors. You gotta talk to people, what they see. When did they see it? Who is wearing what? What vehicles were parked where? The minute details, the stupid little things. Those are the things that we're looking for.
Finally, their tenacity pays off.
One of the neighbors came forward and said, yeah, I remember in the morning I was in my kitchen window and I saw a guy in a red flannel shirt walking down the road going towards the Sheffield house.
He's wearing a red flannel, he's got a hoodie on, and he comes right past their house. He's traveling southbound.
We ended up going to the gas station, which is 200 yards from the Sheffield house.
And their surveillance video show him walking right into the gas station. Plain as day, you can see his face, you can see what he buys, looks up at the camera. This could be a gold mine if we could identify this individual.
Detectives are following up on a tip about a suspicious man in a red shirt seen lurking in the neighborhood on the day Randy was murdered.
We wanted to talk to him. Is he a person of interest or not? So our little neighborhood canvas turned into a door-to-door canvas of a 1 mile radius around the house. We toyed with the theory, could this be a murder for hire? That maybe the family had hired Red Shirt Man to commit this? No.
So professional killers are generally hired in a spousal situation by women to distance themselves from the act. They won't necessarily feel comfortable committing murder themselves, but they will try to reach out to somebody to essentially assist them.
We were looking for Red Shirt Man up and down.
We went as far as to pull who got out of the jail that morning. Were they on foot? Did they get picked up?
But their efforts are in vain. The Red Shirt Man has vanished without a trace. But just as they've reached their wits' end, they get a call from the pathologist. She's found some undigested food in Randy's stomach.
So I get a hold of the medical examiner's office, and they're like, well, we don't know exactly what it is, but it looks like it's pretty much a half of a meal. It's only partially digested. It's pretty fresh. And they're able to do tests on it that we ask for, the trace evidence man. He's able to determine that they are hash browns. We are going, it's the McDonald's food from that morning. It's got to be. So we go back to the video. And Randy's in the drive-thru at McDonald's at 7:05 in the morning. So from Detta's own statement, we know that Randy ate his as soon as he got it. The pathologist tells us, okay, with that, I can tell you that he died anywhere from 7:30 to 9:30 in the morning, no later than that. With that, we're like, this is a game changer.
Until now, detectives had eliminated Detta from the suspect pool because she had an alibi for the time in which they believed Randy died. But with this new information, they now know that Randy actually died between 7:30 and 9:30 a.m., making Detta their prime suspect.
Detta is seen on video leaving her residence in Randy's truck at 9:30 in the morning by herself. Nobody else was in that house. It leaves the question, it's like she was the only one there, so who else could possibly have shot Randy?
Detective Vetter starts digging into the company's public records, looking for answers.
Detta is the bookkeeper of the company, so I pull up Randy Sheffield and our clerk of courts, and I see all these financial liens on Randy Sheffield from the state of Ohio. Randy had not been paying his state sales tax since 2005, and it was quickly escalating to over $100,000. So with that in mind, I started asking Randy's mom, who used to be the bookkeeper of the company. I said, were you aware of this? And she was like, I got a letter in the mail, and I opened it, and I saw that he had a tax lien. Randy's mom asked Detta about it, and she said she knew all about it, but please, I've got it handled. So I'm gonna make good on all those taxes, so we'll be back to square one. Please don't tell Randy, because he would be really upset with me.
Owing back taxes to the IRS is not an enviable position to be in, particularly as a corporation. The stakes are very, very high. People have gone to jail for less.
So we know that the company is hurting financially. Does Randy know it? Probably not. Does Detta know it? Absolutely. Does Tig know it?
There's only one person who can help them answer that question, Randy's friend Jason. Detectives ask him down to the station for a second interview and explain what they've just discovered. This time, he doesn't hold back.
What do you think actually happened?
You want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
I think that she was completely unhappy in her marriage. I think that she had extended out too much help to her friends to the point where it started sacrificing business. I think she panicked before it all came to light. I think he went to McDonald's in the morning, coming back smelling like Egg McMuffins and wanted to have sex, and she just snapped.
Who do you think shot him?
I can tell you this, I feel that they're all guilty. They all knew that night in that garage, every single one of them, that he was already dead in the house. They know, and if they know about it, it's conspiracy to commit murder, right?
Yes.
Detectives now believe Randy Sheffield's family conspired to kill him. To find out who was involved, they start tracking the money.
Where's the tax money gone? What happened? Where's that cash?
So we started realizing that Tig is getting money outside of his paychecks from Detta. Gina is getting money from Detta. She's funneling money unbeknownst to Randy, to the entire family.
Detectives are working a theory that Randy found out about the embezzlement just before Christmas.
Just prior to Randy's death, Randy does go back to his mom and asks his mom if she would take over the books for him. So at that point, we do believe now that Randy's catching wind.
Investigators suspect that Detta, Tig, and Gina knew they were about to be exposed.
They made the decision that it's time to take out Randy. He's not taking this away from us.
Now it was a game of chess. Because we know that they're slowly unraveling.
Investigators now believe they have enough to piece together the final 24 hours of Randy Sheffield's life.
I think in Randy's head, he wanted out of this marriage. He wanted Detta away from his business. I think Tig knew it, Gina knew it, and Detta knew it. I think they all knew it. December 27th was significant in that Randy absolutely loved dirt bike racing. And his race number was 27. So they decided to kill Randy on December 27th because that was his racing number and it was symbolic. That day, Randy goes, gets breakfast, buys some cigarettes, gets gas, eats his breakfast on the way home. He gets home and Detta is sitting there watching TV because she's watching the news because it's going to snow. Randy gives her breakfast. She's not happy with it because it's fast food and the hash browns are cold.
Randy lays down to take a nap. Detta takes a gun. The only gun in the house. Puts it to the back of Randy's skull.
She was like within 3 foot of his head. The gun was 3 foot away from his head. And it was point blank. She knelt down to do it. It was like, God, I visualized, what would you have to do this? She had literally sneak up in there, quiet, kneel down, and pull that trigger.
I think it takes a very cold heart to murder the man who's given you your life and given your family a home and given them a place to be a family. It takes a very cold-hearted person to do that, to take that man's life.
And the person you're supposed to love and the one that's supposed to love you puts a bullet in the back of your head? Does it get any more callous?
The one missing piece of this case was the gun. Randy's gun was taken out of his room, taken out of his box, taken out of his home, and we never did find it.
I think it was Gina. The gun's missing because of Gina. She helped hide the crime.
On March 2015, Detta, Gina, and Tig are arrested for conspiring to kill Randy Sheffield. Gina pleads guilty to tampering with evidence and is given just 2 years.
It was a terrible plea bargain, but it's what we had.
Detta is convicted of aggravated murder and is sentenced to 27.5 years in prison.
The timeline made this case. We referred to the timeline. The pathologist assisted us in the timeline. The jury listened to the timeline. And Detta Sheffield cooked her own goose by this timeline.
Would she have done this again? Given the opportunity, the motive for money? Absolutely. If you can do it once and be that cold, you're cold to the bone. That's just who you are.
The only person who never sees any jail time is Tig.
Ultimately, we couldn't tie Tig to the murder. There was enough evidence to indict him.
The fact that we never presented the case on Tig always bothers me, because Randy took Tig under his wing. He raised Tig like he was his own. He gave Tig everything and anything that he possibly could. Randy was a caring, loving man whose biggest fault is that he trusted people.
Randy lived his life and did what he wanted, and he enjoyed that. A lot of people, they sort of wait, oh, I'll do that when I get the time. I'll do that when I get older. I always told my mom, Randy had fun and he lived the way he wanted to, and you just have to be thankful for that.
It haunts me to think that there are people out there that could just throw somebody away like that.
A brutal killing.
Her body was in a state of decomposition. She had gone through cycles of freezing and then thawing.
It was either she stayed or she wasn't going at all.
A dark mystery with more questions than answers.
She was screaming and crying. She was telling us that it wasn't true, that we were lying.
She said, if I ever find out you're messing around with my husband, I'll kill you.
There's no question of the husband is going to be someone that's going to be looked at.
There's only one person that had the opportunity to commit this murder.
The truth will be revealed.
When people are competing for love, we're prepared to act like animals.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. On the coast of northern New England lies the picturesque city of Portland, Maine.
Portland's a small city. I mean, it's only about 65, 70,000 people. It's a very quaint place to be. It's extremely nice.
Murder is very uncommon in Portland. Violent crime is very low.
Where you have a large metropolitan area having hundreds of murders per year, Portland, you might go 3 or 4.
But on a gray and chilly January afternoon, factory worker Carrie Scott receives a phone call about his missing SUV.
Carrie Scott had attempted months prior to report his car had been stolen. He was told at the time that it was joint property because he was married. So no actual official stolen report was put out. Fast forward 2 months, and Carrie's friend happened to be walking through the motel parking lot, and he saw the red SUV.
He looked, he said, boy, that looks like Carrie's vehicle. And so he called Carrie and said, hey, is your plate number, and gave the plate number.
Carrie said, that's my truck. I'm gonna come out and get it.
Carrie's car had disappeared after being borrowed by his estranged wife, Margarita Scott.
So Carrie gets to the motel and went around to the driver's side. Then he decided, he opened up the back door. And when he looked in, he saw it was, in fact, his wife, Margarita.
He immediately backed away from the vehicle. He didn't try to pull her out of the vehicle to see if she was okay or anything like that. It was clear that Margarita had been there for some time.
I can only imagine how terrifying that was for him to see after all that time.
To discard somebody in the way Rita was found, I mean, she was, shoved behind the seat of a vehicle and then left. I mean, I can't think of anything more degrading than that. It haunts me to think that there are people out there that have the ability to not only commit the crime, but then to just throw somebody away like that.
The way Margarita Scott's body is found provides few answers about what actually happened to her and raises more questions about who she was and what her life was like.
Margarita Scott, she was a really sympathetic figure. She was an immigrant to the country, but she graduated from the local high school. She was working hard to make a life for herself in America. The people who loved her cared very deeply for her.
Tasked with investigating Margarita Scott's murder are veteran homicide detectives Rich Vogel, Carl Rybeck, and Scott Pelletier.
When we arrived, there was snow on the ground. It was cold. I noticed already that there were not a lot of people around, which for me is a good thing. I'm always thinking about, okay, scene preservation.
And so we went up, opened the doors, and looked at what we had. Me, personally, I thought it was a sex crime had taken place. It just looked like something gone really bad. And then the whole story started developing.
Margarita's body was in a state of decomposition. She had gone through cycles of freezing and then thawing just due to the fluctuation in the temperatures and being in the back of the car. She had sustained a gunshot wound to her neck. The gun probably was a .40 caliber high point.
There was no signs within the vehicle that there was any type of struggle. There was no ballistics. We didn't find any gunpowder residue. We did not find any bullet holes. Minimal blood.
We know there was a gun fired and the bullet's not in the body, so the bullet's got to be somewhere. We're now looking for a crime scene.
When you see a drive and dump, or you see a victim in the woods, or you see, like in this case, a victim concealed in a car, the question is, where did this murder happen? Because that's where most of your evidence will be left behind. And until you find that, you're sort of behind the 8 ball.
Detectives begin their investigation into Margarita Scott's murder by focusing on the last 24 hours of her life, starting with her husband, Carrie.
The person that knows Margarita the best, obviously, would be her husband. So we were very interested in speaking with him right off the bat to get the initial story behind what would have led Margarita to end up in the back seat of the car found in a motel parking lot.
When brought in for questioning, Carrie Scott tells detectives that he last saw his estranged wife 2 months earlier, on November 10th.
Carrie and Margarita had been together for at least 8 years. They met in Florida. and eventually moved back to Maine so Margarita could be closer to her family.
The marriage between Margarita Scott and Carrie Scott was, I think it's safe to say, a unique one. They had both come from Kazakhstan. At the time that she had gone missing, they were split up. They had sort of gone their separate ways.
She wanted to be out of the house doing things more fun. Carrie was a workaholic. He worked for a factory here in Portland, building components for cars. He would work very odd hours, go to work at 2 o'clock in the morning and work till whenever, and it was just hard. They had different lives and different schedules going. They were fighting more, and she seemed to get tied up with some rough people. He really loved her, but I think things were just out of hand. He didn't know how to fix it. So she had kind of moved out, and he had no idea where she had been going and staying.
Carrie tells the detectives that he still believed he and Margarita might get back together.
The day that Carrie last saw her, she had stayed with him at their place in Westbrook over the course of a night or a couple of previous nights.
But reveals that when he arrived home from work on November 10th, Margarita wasn't alone.
Carrie comes home, and this is when he finds her with Anthony Pratt.
Carrie explains that Margarita had recently started dating Anthony Pratt, a young man from New York, during her separation from Carrie.
It seems as though Carrie Scott knew what was going on at the very least. He seemed to understand that Margarita Scott had a relationship with Anthony Pratt. He, I guess, was willing to get over it in the short term because he maybe felt like she would come back to him eventually.
Carrie says Margarita told him she wanted to come back home, this time for good. At 2:30 p.m., Carrie agrees to drive Margarita and Anthony back to the apartment where they've been staying.
The plan was to drop Anthony off and Margarita to get her belongings and come back with Carrie.
Now, she wouldn't let Carrie drive them directly to the house because she did not want Carrie to know where she had been staying. So they wanted to be dropped off at the Cumberland Farms, and he was not to follow them.
He waited there for 30 to 45 minutes, and Margarita never returned, and he just assumed that she had left him, that that was the final straw, and she had chosen Anthony over him.
There's a basic principle in criminology and psychology that the avoidance of pain is a more powerful motivator than the pursuit of pleasure. So his tolerating this infidelity, his preparing to be humiliated and drive his wife and her paramour around is actually a better trade-off than being without her. But in spite of all that support, if you want to call it that, circumstances don't change. She still ends up dead, and he's the prime suspect.
The detectives ask Carrie how Margarita ended up with their SUV on November 10th.
Sometime during the early evening of the 10th, around 8 o'clock, she came back to the house in Westbrook, and she had a spare key because they shared the vehicle. She then took the vehicle and went back to where she had been staying, in the Cumberland Farms neighborhood.
He received a message from Margarita. Just said, Carrie, I apologize for taking the vehicle. I know you have to go to work. I'll bring the vehicle back at 2. Carrie was angry. He had to be to work. So he began to call to try to get a hold of Margarita. And she never responded.
He thought that she finally left him, and she went to New York with the boyfriend. And so Carrie turned around and went to the Westbrook police to report his vehicle missing. It was determined the vehicle was registered to both of them. So Westbrook police said, well, we can't take a stolen report on the vehicle because it's rightfully hers as much as it is yours.
To the detectives, a number of elements of Carrie's story just don't add up.
Anytime you're going to have a homicide like that, the husband is going to be someone that's going to be looked at. Carrie's whole demeanor through this whole thing made us pause. Here you're talking about this woman that you love and all this other stuff, and the things that he allowed to happen, it was just crazy to me. I think one motive would have been jealousy right off the bat. And, you know, he would have had opportunity if she was at the house.
Jealousy is a hair-trigger response justified by the fact that someone else is trying to take from them something that they value. When people are competing for our resources, which includes love, we're prepared to act like animals.
Detectives have zeroed in on their first suspect in Margarita Scott's murder. Her husband, Carrie.
He's the last one to see her. She's missing, the vehicle's missing.
In order to narrow down their timeline and determine if Carrie is their killer, the detectives need to establish when the SUV first arrived in the motel parking lot.
Basically what we did is we went back and we looked at police calls for service that happened at the motel. So as officers would spin through the lot, when their cameras were on, we would see the red SUV parked there. The first time that we saw it was on November 11th at 2:38 in the morning.
The detectives can now be certain that the SUV with Margarita's body inside appeared in the parking lot just 6 hours after she borrowed the vehicle from Carrie, making her time of death between 8 p.m. and 2:38 a.m.
How did the vehicle get there? Obviously, we wanted to know that.
What happened to Margarita Scott during those 6 hours?
Maybe he was totally mad about what she was doing, and he's had enough of it. He gets into a quarrel with her out of the jealousy he has. It gets violent, and he kills her.
Jealousy can drive a person to kill, to hurt, to stalk. It's basically an insecurity in that person. And then when it gets really bad, your relationship is pretty much done. But they don't want it to end. They'd rather lose that person than have anyone else have that person in their life.
When detectives question Carrie about where he was at 2:30 a.m. when the SUV carrying Margarita's dead body was seen arriving at the motel, he tells them he was at work from 2 o'clock a.m. until 2 o'clock p.m. on November 11th.
When we went back and did the forensics on Carrie's cell phone, as well as the interviews of his employers, his friends, his neighbors, we were able to show that everything that Carrie told us about where he was, the time frames that he gave us, they all matched up.
We were able to see through phone records on Margarita's phone all the times that he was calling, looking for her, leaving voicemail messages. He noticed that the credit card was being used in New York. So he had every indication that she was alive and possibly living in New York.
With Carrie placed solidly at work from 2 o'clock a.m. until 2 o'clock p.m., he couldn't have killed Margarita and dropped the body at 2:38 a.m. The detectives then turned their focus to the new boyfriend, Anthony Pratt, who Carrie says Margarita was with on the day she disappeared.
When we interviewed Carrie, and he began to tell us the dynamics between him and Margarita and how their marriage was not the greatest, but that they were working on it. We were first introduced to Flacco, or Anthony Pratt. Part of our investigation obviously identified where Anthony Pratt and Margarita had been spending time. This was an apartment that was actually a home that was rented by Chris and Tennille Jennings.
Tennille and Christopher Jennings are a married couple with 2 young children, and Chris is a local drug dealer who is well known to Portland police.
Chris was also known by the street name of Red. Our investigation revealed that Chris had a history of drug trafficking. He's originally from New York. He traveled here to Maine with his wife and 2 children. They rented this home, and part of his job, the only job that Chris had, was distributing crack cocaine with Anthony Pratt.
Tracking down Anthony Pratt and Christopher Jennings becomes the detective's top priority.
With the phone records, we were able to locate an address that Christopher was living at Concord Street in Portland.
We went to the apartment to check on these people, and we looked in the house, and it looked like nobody living on the first floor where they supposedly were supposed to be. And I contacted the landlord, and she told us she bought the building, and she told Jennings that they had to move, that she was going to do renovations and redo the apartment.
The evidence technicians went there and they started searching around, and they went into the basement and found a huge red-brown stain that was consistent with blood in the basement. And they were able to track it and follow it along the piping. Then they went upstairs and they found more blood in the baseboard and along the bottom of the door that went into the apartment.
A blood sample is sent to the lab for DNA testing, and the results come back with a positive match for Margarita Scott.
It now became a crime scene, as far as we were concerned. So, but the problem was everything had been torn out, so we didn't know what had happened.
The destruction of the Jennings' former apartment presents a serious setback for the investigation.
Tampering in a crime scene is ultimately fatal to the credibility of any evidence recovered from those scenes. In this case, we see not so much tampering as the destruction of the scene, to the point that anything found there later on is going to be so substantially, dramatically different, you lack then the probable cause to make an arrest. And certainly, even if you make an arrest, you've got major issues in terms of meeting that reasonable doubt benchmark in court.
With evidence that Margarita was killed at the Jennings' old apartment, the detectives pursue an injunction to halt the renovation. Now their #1 priority is to track down Chris and his wife Tennille and Anthony Pratt.
We found them through the landlord. She gave us an address, which she thought they had moved to for any mail or whatever. So we went and confronted them about Margarita, and they were quite shocked. And they actually thought that Margarita had gone to New York and she was with Anthony.
The detectives want to know when the Jennings last saw Anthony Pratt.
Chris tells us that on the morning of the 11th, Anthony had to return back to New York right away. He told Chris and Tennille that his grandfather was in dire need of him, and so he had to return because of Hurricane Sandy.
The detectives question the Jennings about their whereabouts on November 10th, the night Margarita Scott disappeared.
Both Chris and Tennille remembered the date specifically. And for us as investigators, who remembers 2 months ago? They both gave similar stories about what they did and where their whereabouts were on November 10th.
As the Jennings continue to talk to the detectives, a police search of their new home raises another red flag.
When they were checking the house, they went into the rooms, and they went into the bedroom, they went into the closet, and they noticed a door in the ceiling for the crawl space up above where they were. So they popped up the door to look in the thing, and when they did, they heard a thud hit. And then they pushed the door up and they looked, and there was a handgun.
It was a High Point Smith & Wesson .40 caliber handgun, possibly a murder weapon.
With the discovery of a .40 caliber handgun, the same caliber used to kill Margarita Scott, suspicion shifts to drug dealer Chris Jennings and his wife Tennille.
Chris might have been mad because maybe Margarita owes him money for drugs.
Detectives haul Chris and Tennille Jennings down to the station for questioning.
Chris and Tennille both stated that it was Chris's birthday And so they had gone out that night into the old port. They were dropped off by Margarita sometime around 11 o'clock at night. They went to some clubs and bars.
Anthony and Margarita were supposed to be babysitting the kids on the night of the party. Margarita was set to come pick them up at 1 o'clock in the morning when the bars closed. Well, around 1 o'clock in the morning, the bars were closing and they emptied out, and Chris and his wife decided, since it's his birthday, they wanted to know if there was some place they could go until later hours.
They did not have their cell phone with them, so Tennille was able to ask somebody to borrow a phone. She called Margarita and spoke to Margarita and said, "Don't bother to come get us. We're going to take a cab over to one of the strip clubs and hang out, and we'll get a ride there. Where are you?" And she said, "I'm home with Anthony." Tennille tells us that she makes another phone call at around 2 a.m. from the club, and when she calls the house, she speaks to Anthony and asks, where's Margarita?
And he says, "I don't know." He says she left and she went to bring the truck back, and she's never come back.
It's around 3:30 in the morning. Tennille and Christopher took a cab from the strip club to their home, and when they arrived, they found Anthony laying on the couch with one of the children on his chest sleeping.
If Margarita's body was dropped at 2:38 a.m., about 40 minutes after the Jennings' second phone call home, the timeline shows both of them had the opportunity to kill her just after 2 a.m. and before they returned home at 3:30 a.m.
So Chris and Tennille went to bed. Then the next morning, Anthony Pratt woke up. He said he's got to get back to New York.
Once Anthony left to go back to New York, they might have had phone conversations, but they never saw him again. And they never saw Margarita either.
The detectives are still eager to know about the .40 caliber gun found in their home, the same caliber of weapon used to kill Margarita.
Initially, Chris and Tennille lied about having a gun or knowing anything about a gun, and they were questioned hard about that. And then finally, Chris Jennings admitted that he and Anthony had purchased it. Tennille didn't want the gun around the children, so they hid it up in the attic space in the closet.
But under intense questioning, Chris reveals a significant detail, that there had been a conflict between Tennille and Margarita that night.
Tennille was very jealous of the whole relationship between Christopher and Margarita. Tennille had been cheated on by Christopher in the past, so she was pretty antsy about the whole thing.
It's very dangerous to overlook a female as a suspect just because you assume more times than not it's a male. If you don't look at that female, that's the person that's going to get away with murder.
On the evening of the 10th, before Chris and Tennille went out, I don't know if she noticed her husband and Margarita were being over-friendly with each other, but she did make a comment to her, "If I ever find out you're messing around with my husband or anything, I'll kill you." Tennille, she could have discovered that, in fact, something did happen, and she was going to make good on what she said. There was a gun there. It was in her apartment. She had plenty of opportunity. And so that was a possibility, and a possibility we had to look at.
Is that a motive to kill? It has been in the past.
The love triangle motive, that's common because you have someone who is full of so much emotion towards two people. They may be upset at their lover. They may feel betrayed. And then towards the other person, they may feel an incredible amount of anger and the desire for revenge.
During the Jennings questioning, new DNA results come back from the lab, and the evidence is explosive.
Through a sex crimes kit, we found DNA, but we didn't know that at the time of the autopsy. A sex crimes kit will give us, hopefully, DNA of the last person to be intimate with Margarita.
And it was shown that Margarita had recent sex with Christopher. The timeline would be significant for that because the way Margarita was found, it had to have been a recent sexual encounter, probably on November 10th. So we have to look at Chris again.
We confronted Chris Jennings with this, and he finally said yes, he did have sex, and it was the days before his birthday. There was something going on at the house, a little disagreement, so he took Margarita and asked them to give him a ride to the store. And then they went up by Hall School, which is nearby, and in the parking lot, and he had sex with Margarita.
Could Tennille have found out about Chris and Margarita's sexual encounter? And if so, did she follow through on her threat to kill Margarita?
Jealousy. That would be the motive right there. A motive for Tennille to kill Margarita.
As the focus of the investigation shifts to Tennille Jennings, detectives want to find out what she knew about the relationship between Chris and Margarita.
Chris and Tennille all along would tell lies, and then we would question them about those lies, and we would have facts to back it up, and they would then tell us the truth after realizing that we knew what we were talking about.
Lying, obviously, is one of the fastest ways to derail an investigation. People may be lying because they have some involvement or they're looking to cover up either the role of themselves or somebody else in the crime. And this may have an actual catastrophic effect on the eventual investigation. Determining who's lying, something we call a veracity assessment. There's a number of techniques we can use to do this, but really, if you think about it, most people are actually pretty good lie detectors on their own. It comes from experience, it comes from intuition, it comes from street smarts, and a good investigator will have that in spades.
So Tennille starts to explain that she didn't know that Christopher and Margarita had been intimate. Tennille was screaming and crying. She was telling us that it wasn't true, that we were lying. Just did not take it well at all, and it was a genuine reaction. She was upset. If she knew anything about it, that would be the time that she would say something, if she was pissed off enough.
To confirm if Tennille is telling the truth, detectives dig deeper into her alibi.
We were able to track down the woman whose phone they borrowed in the old port, and she was able to confirm that on that particular night, she remembers someone asking to use her phone, and that they were asking if there were any places that were open later, and Chris and Tennille were directed to the strip club, PT's, because it stayed open until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And then when they got to the strip club, they had a private dance, and they were trying to make a hookup with the dancer, so the dancer put Chris's phone number in her phone and called it 2 times. And those records were on Chris's phone at home.
So that placed them solidly at PT's until that time of morning.
With the Jennings alibis checking out, that means they couldn't have killed Margarita between 1 a.m. when they last spoke to her and 2:38 a.m. when the body was dropped. Chris then points the finger directly at Anthony Pratt, Margarita's boyfriend.
So he called Anthony on his cell phone, and he talked to Anthony. And he told Anthony, the police are here, they found Margarita, she's dead, and he confronted Anthony with all of this. And Anthony's reply is, well, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Chris says, well, you killed her. What do you want me to do? That was his reply.
Anthony doesn't confess to Chris, but he doesn't deny having killed Margarita either. To the detectives, the phone call puts Anthony in a whole new light.
So even with the fact that Chris had sex with Margarita earlier and that Tennille had made a threat that she would kill Margarita, at the end of the day, when we looked at everything, the forensics, the interviews, the timeline only shows there's only one person that had the opportunity to commit this murder and to do it in the location that it happened was Anthony Pratt.
I see Anthony Pratt as a young man who's an under-controlled batterer, someone who engages in violence to exert his superiority and regain control of the relationship. Sometimes people like this almost see women as property, right? As something to be owned or ownership. And so if you're not achieving those expectations or you're behaving differently, this angers these type of people. And there's no good ways that they know to respond other than to resort to violence. So in this situation, whether he's motivated by jealousy or maybe Margarita had said she's going to break up with him, these are factors that clearly aggravate him to the point that he becomes angry enough to perpetrate this act of domestic violence.
With Anthony, now the prime suspect in Margarita's murder, and at large in New York City, detectives step up their search by enlisting the help of the NYPD to track him down.
Finding someone in a city like New York who's gone AWOL in an investigation is like a needle in a haystack.
We were already 2 months behind the 8 ball when this whole case started. We needed to find Anthony Pratt before there was greater opportunity for him to flee.
I don't think there's any doubt in his mind that the police were now looking for him.
But then they catch a break, and Anthony returns Detective Vogel's numerous calls.
I kept it very light. I just said that, I wanted to talk to him. I had heard that he was engaged to Margarita, and he had told me that he hadn't seen her, but he was willing to help out any way he could. And my thing was not to be antagonistic or aggressive in any way. I just wanted him to tell me his story. And so he had agreed to come to Portland.
Face to face with Pratt for the very first time, the detectives hope to finally get at the truth of who killed Margarita Scott.
You know something about this.
No, I do not know anything
Absolutely
about this.
you do.
They said 100%. They seen her in December, or I don't...
Nobody has seen her. Her family, her husband, nobody has seen her. When we started to ask him about certain things, and he would lie about them.
Rita takes Chris and Tennille into town, right?
Right.
Okay, so you're home watching the kids. Rita comes back there, does she?
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of.
I don't know if...
Okay, well then, Tennille calls the house at 1 o'clock in the morning. Rita answers the phone. They tell her, don't come pick her up. So that must put Rita back at the apartment, right?
I don't know.
You don't know.
He confirmed that Chris and Tennille had gone out that night, that it was Chris's birthday, and that Margarita had dropped them off, and that she never came back.
Anthony says that he left first thing the next morning to go to New York City, just like Chris Jennings had said.
It was so bizarre in the entire time from her disappearance to when she was found, Anthony Pratt never called, never tried to call her. And the phone records show that she wasn't using her phone to call him because most of the calls on her records on her phone were from her husband trying to find her until the phone died.
The evidence against Anthony Pratt is compelling, but entirely circumstantial.
Circumstantial cases are harder to prosecute because it relies on a lot of inferences from the evidence that is available. And so where prosecutors will say it should lead you to there, if the defense attorney can say actually could lead you to A, B, C, then that means it's reasonable doubt. But if the prosecutor has physical evidence, DNA evidence, anything that's hard evidence to connect the dots, then the prosecutor is going to be more likely to get to that reasonable doubt threshold.
In an effort to build a stronger case against Anthony, detectives return to the neighborhood of the Jennings' former apartment, where Margarita was last seen, to search for anyone who may have seen or heard anything unusual the night of the murder.
The canvas establishes the players who are in the neighborhood or in the area at the time of the crime. It captures the world in which this crime occurred. And these are very important people to come back to later, because while they may not have seen anything suspicious, investigators sometimes need to be asking them about something not suspicious or something seemingly harmless that they saw. That may actually be as important as what they deem to be suspicious.
Just doing a canvas of the neighbors. Nobody heard a gunshot, but there was a neighbor. She had gotten home from work in the early morning hours. She was watching a movie and she went out on her front porch to have a cigarette, and it was 2 in the morning. She saw a black male with a hoodie carrying what she thought in her mind looked like a body. And then she convinced herself that she was seeing things. It was wrapped in trash bags, and the guy was having a difficult time carrying it, and went to a red SUV and opened up the back and discarded the item in the back of the SUV. There's no question Anthony Pratt is the one that murdered Margarita.
Detectives have an eyewitness account of a body being dragged from the Jennings' former apartment that fits perfectly within their timeline. We now know that Margarita Scott was killed between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock a.m. on November 11th.
Well, the timeline is very important, and I do it with all my major cases. It tells a definite story. There's no question. I mean, this is what happened.
Detectives place Anthony on the timeline and theorize that he killed Margarita in the Jennings' former apartment. But they need physical evidence, and the apartment has been ripped apart.
The evidence technicians had this grueling process of actually putting a jigsaw puzzle back together. The wooden paneling on the floor had to be picked up and placed on the walls to put it back together. As they did that, they lifted each piece, inspected it, and in one of the pieces of paneling, they located on the back side of the paneling what initially looked like maybe a piece of putty from somebody maybe spackling or something. And what it actually turned out to be was a piece of paper and a piece of chewing gum. Green chewing gum had been pushed through a hole and sealed with the gum. As they put the paneling back on the wall, they got to a spot where within the plaster, they were able to cut that piece out. And behind that, they were able to locate an actual bullet.
So if you didn't look at your walls closely and didn't see it, you would have never noticed this little piece of paper covering a hole stuck there with gum.
Evidence was sent to the state crime lab for ballistics on the bullet, as well as DNA for the chewing gum. The bullet that was recovered could only have been fired from a high-point Smith & Wesson .40 caliber handgun.
Connecting the bullet to the same kind of weapon that was used to kill Margarita Scott is a significant step forward. But detectives still need physical evidence to directly link Anthony Pratt to the weapon.
The cheek swab that was sent out for Anthony's DNA came back positive that it was his DNA on the chewing gum that was placed in the hole. We know by that he had to have been at that scene. There's just no two ways around it.
The detectives are now able to piece together Margarita Scott's final 24 hours.
Margarita would have stayed with Carrie on November 9th. November 10th, Carrie took Anthony and Margarita to Chris and Tennille's house. The plan was to drop Anthony off and Margarita to get her belongings and come back with Carrie. She never did. It was Chris Jennings' birthday. Margarita did take them out around 11 o'clock at night. Sometime after 1 a.m. on the 11th, she got a call from Tennille using a stranger's phone saying, "Don't bother picking us up, we're gonna stay out."
I believe his anger toward the fact that she still was returning home, that was the last straw. I think that she was ready to leave and was going to return that truck to her husband and probably stay at her own home like she's been doing regularly, and Anthony was going to have no part of that. It was either she stayed or she wasn't going at all. Based on all the evidence that we were able to obtain, Anthony shot Margarita in the living room floor of that home. He picked her up, took her outside, dumped her in the back of that red truck, drove the red truck. It's less than 2 miles from the home to the motel's parking lot.
On April 2nd, 2013, Anthony Pratt is arrested for the murder of Margarita Scott. He's found guilty and sentenced to 42 years in prison.
I think it was almost more for the family, that you don't want to let them down. It's the most serious offense when someone's life is taken, and there is a lot of pressure from friends and family to find out who did it.
I still wake up every morning and I still think police work is an honorable job. There are always going to be a faction of society that does not play by the rules, and somebody has to keep those people in check.
It was a difficult case from the very beginning, but pieces fell together out of just hard work, of old-fashioned police work in some sense, of just pounding the beat, and justice was done.